On tonight's Gwinnett Prep Rally, big games with even bigger introductions as the region slate starts to heat up around the county. It was a tale of two halves in Suwannee as Peachtree Ridge got off to a fast start, but the Mill Creek offense awoke in the second frame and came out firing. In Region 8, Shiloh looked to keep their unbeaten start to the season going as they went on the road to South Gwinnett, but it was the Comets' night to soar to victory. Grayson may have fallen from the #1 spot, but they still have a ton to play for, and we sit down with star player Robert Nkemdiche. Plus, we recap all the action from the 2012 Gwinnett County Cross Country Championships and much more on this edition of GPR, and it starts right now.
For 20 years, there's only been one home for high school sports, Gwinnett Prep Rally.
Hello and welcome to this week's Gwinnett Prep Rally, now in our 20th season covering high school athletics in Gwinnett County. And you can catch the show right here on GCPS TV for all the football, basketball, soccer, and baseball action from Class 6A all the way down to Single A. I'm Todd Klein alongside Will Hammock from the Gwinnett Daily Post. And Will, the 2012 Gwinnett County Cross Country Championships took place this past weekend with some familiar names and teams taking home the big prizes.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of suspense for the individual races. Catherine Yost of Norcross, she had a great race. She was definitely the favorite. Got to congratulate her on a recent commitment to Ole Miss. She had a fabulous race. Same with Josh Backel. He's been the longtime favorite in Gwinnett cross country and track. Just a great distance runner. He picked up a championship there as expected. The team races, even on the girls' side, wasn't a surprise. The Brookwood girls did it once again. They're a very powerful team. Coach Chris Carter does a great job over there. Also, kudos to Andy Christie up at Mill Creek. He's put together a great team. He deserves a lot of credit. Cross country is such a team sport. I know it's individual runners, but they run in packs, and it's so important to have a strong team. Andy Christie's built a strong one up there. They won the county championship for the first time, and that bodes well for this team going into the region and state meets.
Well, special thanks to the Gwinnett Daily Post for providing those great photographs. Well, now it's time for football highlights, and the Peachtree Ridge Lions got their first win last week against Duluth, and they look to keep that momentum rolling against visiting Mill Creek. GPR's Nathan Shutter has more.
Military Appreciation Night in Suwannee as Peachtree Ridge played host to Mill Creek in an important Region 7 showdown. The Lions would strike first on the opening drive. Bryson Sellers back to pass, and he fires a bullet to Joe Horn for the touchdown. Lions up 7-0. Second quarter, Peachtree Ridge on the move. Sellers will complete the pass to Walden Davis, and he uses his legs to pick up a couple extra yards. But the drive would stall and the Lions will settle for a field goal attempt. Connor Rouleau will split the uprights to give Peachtree Ridge a 10-0 lead heading to the locker room. Second half, and Mill Creek will get things going on the opening drive. Daniel David going deep downfield, and he hooks up with Michael Cheeks for the touchdown. Hawks trail 10-7. Fourth quarter, Mill Creek looking to take the lead. David going for it all, and Jen Hahn makes a spectacular grab for the touchdown. The PAT was no good. Hawks up 13-10. Later in the quarter, the give is to Ja'Cory Lewis, and he burst up the middle untouched. 47 yards on the touchdown run, and Mill Creek in control up 20-10. Peachtree Ridge offense looking to respond, but the Mill Creek D was having none of it. Gary Holness slams Sellers to the turf for a quarterback sack. Then the Lions have to go for it on fourth down, but Andrew Sciara and Kelsey Griffin bring down Sellers to seal the victory as Mill Creek rallies in the second half for a 20-10 win over Peachtree Ridge.
Well, Will, wasn't the start that Mill Creek was looking for, but the finish was hard to argue with.
Yeah, they were just dreadful offensively in the first half, and finally got it going in the second half. And kudos to that Mill Creek defense for playing hard all night long. They kind of kept that Peachtree Ridge offense in check and gave them time. Only down 10-0 at halftime. It really could have been a lot worse than that in the first half, as bad as the offense played. But the defense only held Peachtree Ridge to just the 10 points, and then really stepped it up, kept it going, and pitched a shutout there in the second half.
And we're still trying to kind of figure out this Peachtree Ridge team. That first half looked maybe more like Peachtree Ridge fans hoped the Lions would look this year, but then the second half was kind of back to some things that they experienced earlier this season. Yeah,
they're kind of tough to figure out. I mean, they really passed the eye test. There's athletes all over the field. They have a giant offensive line. I mean, you see that offensive line and you figure that they'd have to run the ball better than they do. They really struggled to run the ball. I mean, Bryson Sellers, the quarterback, was running for his life most of the night. I mean, that was the bulk of the rushing offense was him running around, and he threw the ball pretty well, had a good first half, but really they got a lot to figure out over there at Peachtree Ridge if they want to make the playoffs.
Well, back to the highlights, and the Shiloh Generals are off to an unbeaten start in the 2012 campaign, but they would have their hands full as they traveled to South Gwinnett to take on the revenge-minded Comets. GPR's Matt Pelkey has all the action from Snellville.
3-0 for the first time since 1991, the Shiloh Generals went into enemy territory Friday night against the South Gwinnett Comets, looking to stay perfect on the season. But on the first play from scrimmage, Comets QB Jordan Ramey finds LJ Gainey over the middle for a big 45-yard gain. It was all downhill from there for the Generals. Later in the drive, Ramey again finds Gainey, this time in the flats. He barrels through 2 defenders across the goal line for the score. 7-0 South Gwinnett early. Still in the first, Ramey rolls to his right and says, "I'll do it myself." He takes it in untouched from 8 yards out and tells Cam Newton, "I'm the real Superman." Second quarter now, the Comets are still chucking it around the yard. Ramey sees Corey Keel streaking past defenders and hits him in stride for the 45-yard score. Later in the second, Ramey goes to his favorite target again. The throw is a little wide, but LJ Gainey makes a nice snag at the goal line to extend the lead to 24-0. Generals running back Grant Swinton was the lone bright spot for his team. He bounces it outside and rumbles down the sideline for a 20-yard gain. Later in the drive, though, Generals quarterback Devontae James overshoots his receiver and instead finds Mason Hart's open arms in the end zone. Hart says, "I'll take that, thank you," and returns the pick out to the 20-yard line. One last score for good measure. Jordan Ramey pitches it to running back Josh Boyd in the left flat, and Boyd does the rest, taking it in for the easy touchdown. South Gwinnett cruises past Shiloh 31-0.
Well, special thanks to the Shiloh Touchdown Club for providing those highlights. And Will, South Gwinnett came in there. They played great, but I think maybe some people are overlooking this South Gwinnett team, which obviously has some offensive firepower.
Yeah, I think they're so much improved over last season just because they finally got healthy. And they've always had a lot of talent over there. Coach Small does a great job managing that talent. The defense is much improved, and the offense, as they've always shown, they can put up a lot of points over there in Snellville.
And looking at Shiloh, obviously off to that great start. All that was good, kind of building a tradition or rebuilding a tradition over there. What is kind of the reality that's setting in now for the Generals as they settle in for this tough region part of their schedule?
It's going to be a tough slate. I mean, it's going to be very tough the rest of the way. They're going to play teams as hard as they can. They're going to be solid on defense, but offensively they're really struggling at this point. I mean, I don't think they're ready to compete for a playoff spot this season in that tough region, but Coach Hobbs is doing things the right way over there, and I look for a bright future out of the Generals.
A lot more football action to get to as we recap a few other 6A teams from around the county. It's brought to you by Breda Pest Management, and we start off with the Parkview Panthers. Well, I think some people thought there might be a letdown after that big win over Grayson, but no, Parkview comes out and plays great against Archer.
Yeah, it was a thrilling finish. I mean, a great job of managing the game by Mac Marshall. He came in, stepped up at quarterback when Robert Youngblood went down with an injury. That was a tough loss for them to lose Youngblood at quarterback, but really, Parkview stepped up, played great defense in this game, and Chris Carson carried the load on offense.
And we move over to the team that Parkview knocked off. Well, no surprise that Grayson came out with a vengeance against Decula.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup. Decula's been struggling, trying to get that first win, and Grayson really was motivated for this game, played one of their best games of the season. The defense was excellent. They had 2 rushers over 100 yards. Wayne Gallman leading the way with 116 yards. 2 touchdowns, and Arias McCall also went over 100 yards.
And we talk about the Norcross Blue Devils. Will, there's lots of good teams to talk about in this county. Norcross is right up there with any of them.
Yeah, they look like the best of the bunch at this point. Beat Duluth 36-7. That's a pretty good Duluth team with a lot of offensive firepower, and they completely shut down Duluth there until the very end when Norcross reserves gave up a touchdown on a turnover. So really just an excellent game all the way around for the Blue Devils.
And you talk about offensive firepower. Central Gwinnett showed it against Berkmar. This week they go against South Gwinnett. And I think I might take the over in that game.
Yeah, the skill guys are as good as any in the county. I think E-Man Westmoreland, the quarterback, leads the way. He runs that offense well. He's been doing it for 3 years now, 259 yards, 3 touchdowns in this one. Really manages the game well, and he has a multitude of skill guys to go to.
And then we go to Mountain View, got a nice win over Habersham Central. Marvin Elam, a big part of that victory.
Yeah, he rushed for 140 yards and a touchdown. He's going to be a big part of every game they play this season. He's going to get tons of carries. He really carries that offense. He's the most exciting player they got over there, very big, powerful back. They're going to have to rely on him heavily as the season goes on, but great for Coach Ciccone to get this win over Habersham, get another regional win, and even that record at 2-2.
Well, I want to go back and talk to you about Parkview. They back up that upset of Grayson with that nice win over Archer. They have arch rival Brookwood this week, and believe it or not, Parkview is in perfect position to maybe make a run at this region title.
Yeah, it would have been surprised a lot of people if you'd said that before the season, but with that win over Grayson in your pocket, I mean, that's a great spot for Parkview to be in. They beat Brookwood this week, and then you kind of have even a margin for error. If you lose a game the rest of the way, you're still looking like the favorite to win the region title. So just a great situation for the Panthers, and they've earned it. They've played great so far.
I want to go back and talk about Norcross a little bit. They've already beaten North Gwinnett, but they can't have any letdowns in region play. But right now, it doesn't look like that's a big worry. They are playing some good football.
Yeah, just a very dangerous Norcross team. I mean, the athletes all over the field. I mean, Out of all the talented teams, I think this may be the strongest top to bottom that they have. They have everything they want. They have one of the bigger lines that they've ever had. It's really all coming together for Norcross right now, and I hope this is the year that they can make a deep playoff run and show some of the state what they're made of.
Well, for the past 20 years, Gwinnett Prep Rally has been the county's #1 place for high school sports, and every week we will be sitting down with the show's creator, Jeff Batten, to take a look back at the show's great history.
You know, people ask, oh, where did Gwinnett Prep Rally even come from? It came from the fact that I'm sitting in a Norcross apartment in the fall of 1992, not sure what to do with my life. I knew I wanted to get into broadcasting. I got a degree from UGA, a master's in broadcasting, but the idea of moving to Pensacola or Chattanooga and starting off as the little sports guy, that there was just no way I was going to be able to do that. So I'm in the depths of despair, and it's winter of '92, and Scott Bernardi, who was the sports editor for the old AJC's Gwinnett Extra, says, you know what, Wametco Cable has got this cable channel Channel 2, and all they've got is graphics up there that say, get your tree stump cut by Joe for $10. It's just the billboard channel. And I found out that the cable system was willing to sell time to people like me to put on programming. I said, you know, I'm already kind of covering some sports, some high school sports for the Journal-Constitution as a freelance thing, so I'm kind of already in the high school sports mode. As a matter of fact, the last story I ever wrote for the AJC before Gwinnett Prep Rally was Chuck Mize's final game as the Parkview coach that year. So that's how Gwinnett Prep Rally even came about, was I needed something to do, and I had no idea how difficult it was going to be to get it off the ground, but it sure sounded like a great idea.
Well, we're looking there at some of Jeff Batten's memories. Obviously, I've been on this show for 16 years, but back when this show started, I worked for Scott Bernardi and Stan Autry, so saw some of the stuff they did on the show. Talk about a little bit, maybe from your perspective as a high school student and then a sports writer at the Daily Post, kind of what you think that Prep Rally meant to these athletes.
I mean, I think it was really the show. That's one you wanted to watch if you're a high school athlete in Gwinnett County. You wanted to see, I think the key, even these days, is you want to see other people's highlights. I mean, you were at the game, you saw what your team did, but you want to see what other teams, what your friends that played for other schools did in Gwinnett County. And I think that was the value. I mean, I think you wanted to catch as many games as you could, and the show gave you the best chance to do that.
Well, let's get back to the highlights. And the Grayson Rams were able to bounce back with a big win after their shocking loss to Parkview. And while their dreams of a national title are gone, the region and state titles are still a strong possibility. But if they are going to repeat for both championships, they will need the #1 player in the country, Robert Nkemdiche, to help lead the way.
Tonight's team leader is presented by Breda Pest Management.
You're talking about a kid that's 6'4.5", 6'5", 280, runs a 4.5 40.
Grayson defensive end Robert Nkemdiche has risen to the top of the recruiting rankings over the past couple years, and being the most sought-after prospect in the entire nation comes with a lot of attention.
Recruiting process has been crazy, man. Coaches from all over the world, man, is coming to see me and talk to me and tell me what I want to hear. You know, just feeding me everything they can to get me over to the school. You know, it's crazy, man. Just every phone call, every second, it's crazy.
He already has the size and speed of a D1 college player, but it's the mental side of the game that separates Nkemdiche from the rest of the nation's elite.
And the defense is that's what I do. I'm a master of defense. I study so much film. I know the offense line was going to do before the play snaps already. And, you know, I love hitting people. You know, I don't have to hold anything back. You know, there's no holding on defense. There's nothing. You know, I can do whatever I want to anybody I want on the field.
Early on, when Robert was a freshman, you know, it was just all brute strength and speed. When he really made a name for himself late in the playoffs and going into his junior year, he started getting the double teams and the triple teams, and he's had to learn little things technically, as well as seeing things on the field that would give him an advantage.
With over 30 scholarship offers from the top football programs in the country, Robert Nkemdiche had plenty of options, and in the end, it was Clemson University that came out on top.
And that's a family-oriented school, man. Dabo Sweeney, he's a great man. You know, so everybody over there made me feel at home, and I feel like it was more than football over there. You know, I had some other schools that's talking to me about football and not really showing me their life. But, you know, I feel like that was a great school, and I feel like I can come in there, man, feel in the spot and get ready to go to the league. So
I think that Robert is going to make a big name for himself at Clemson in what he can do for that program. I mean, I see him being a 3-year college guy and being a first-round draft pick.
Well, you're looking at Nkemdiche, and you've covered a lot of great athletes. So we've had NBA players and we've had Major League Baseball players. But have you ever seen an athlete that generated the interest that Nkemdiche has with his recruitment and his play?
I don't think so. I mean, Darius Walker made a pretty big spectacle of his recruitment, but I mean, it's nothing like being the #1 recruit in the nation. I mean, everybody's talking about every little thing that Robert does. It's kind of a lot of pressure on him, but he's handled it pretty well. I mean, to me, he's kind of a lot like Cameron Hayward was when he was in high school, only he's a little bit faster, a little more quicker than Cameron Hayward was. I didn't think I would ever see that, but just a phenomenal athlete. He's a guy that I think, like Mickey said, is going to be a first-round draft pick one day.
Time now for Will's World. We put 60 seconds on the clock. We get in the mind of our very own Will Hammock, and it's brought to you by Nexstar Communications. Will, what do you have for us this week?
About the Wesleyan quarterback, Will Anderson. He's a great football player. He's a guy that really is the key for this Wesleyan football team. They're going to be pretty evenly matched with a lot of teams on their schedule, maybe even overmatched by some of the bigger schools and the talent that they're playing. But Will Anderson, I think, gives them a kind of a X factor there. He's really an excellent football player. He throws the ball well, runs the ball pretty well, and really just manages that offense, does what he needs to do. He gives them a player that maybe a lot of teams that size that don't have. A guy that used to be a quarterback in Gwinnett County, Taylor Heineke, I guess a lot of people probably saw what he did this past weekend. Threw for a Division I record, 730 yards in a win over New Hampshire. 55 out of 79 passing, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. Just a phenomenal game. He's putting up huge numbers already in 2 seasons at Old Dominion. He's just such a talented quarterback. I think a lot of schools, bigger schools, missed out when they didn't take him. Here's a guy that we saw in the past. He's playing for the Atlanta Falcons now, Jonathan Massaquoi over there at Central Gwinnett. Was a force, played a little linebacker, a little defensive end. He's a defensive end now for the Falcons. Hasn't been active for any of the Falcons games, but I think you're going to see before the end of the year he's going to find his way out there. He's learning right now, and he's learning from some of the better defensive ends in the game. A guy like John Abraham's not a bad guy to learn from, and I think it's going to be a bright future in the NFL for Jonathan.
We'll want to go back and talk about Taylor Heineke. The thing about him is I think he's kind of the patron saint for kids in Gwinnett County who maybe aren't the biggest recruits, to show that you can still play ball at a high level. It was so neat seeing his accomplishments. He's on SportsIllustrated.com, ESPN, and now he's a national news guy, even though he wasn't highly recruited out of Gwinnett.
It's just a classic case of those guys that if he was 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", he would have been one of the top recruits in the nation. But as a high schooler, he's between 6 foot and 6'1", 190 pounds. Wasn't impressive physically, but obviously put up huge numbers his senior year in high school. And I really think the big schools missed out by not going after him. He's going to be already is a superstar for Old Dominion, and just a great get for that college.
Time now to focus on standout performances. So let's move on to this week's Building Blocks presented by Britt's Home Furnishing. And first up is Daniel David from Mill Creek.
Yeah, great game. He continues to impress me. A sophomore, a lot of people didn't know what to expect out of a sophomore quarterback, but a very solid game. 12 of 19, 188 yards, a couple of touchdowns against Peachtree Ridge. Peachtree Ridge really made it tough for Mill Creek to run the ball, so he was relied on to throw the ball a lot. Had a huge 4th down pass on what was the game-winning drive. Just really showed me a lot for a sophomore in that game.
We talked about that South Gwinnett offense getting things cranked up. A big part of that is L.J. Gainey.
Yeah, there's a lot of playmakers in that field. Jordan Ramey gets a lot of credit, but he's got a lot of targets out there like L.J. Gainey. 5 catches, 105 yards, a couple of touchdowns in this game. One of the better wide receivers you're going to see in Gwinnett County with his speed, his ability to catch, and really the run after the catch. You see a lot of that from him in ball games, and it's going to be a threat throughout the season.
Then we go on the defensive side for Mill Creek, and Andrew Sciara had a very nice game.
Yeah, we talked about a lot about their defense. He had the 4 tackles for the loss, the interception. Also had 17 tackles, and 16 of those were solos, and that's a Mill Creek school record for solo tackles in a game. Really, it was just all over the place. I think if you were at the game and you heard how many times his name was called for making a tackle, you could tell he was having a pretty huge game, and that Mill Creek defense just as a whole did a very nice job.
Well, Will, those were all great performances. Who else played well last week that we should mention?
Well, Lanier's got a breakout player at running back, Terry O'Fuller. He rushed for 171 yards this past week. Just an excellent football player. Gives them a lot of explosiveness on offense, and it's going to lead them into their first region schedule. It's great to have a playmaker like that.
Time now for Will to take a peek into the crystal ball as we look ahead to some key matchups on the gridiron this week. It's brought to you by Tommy Lee Carpets. We call it Beat the Post, and we'll give you a chance to do exactly that. And Will, we start off with Archer playing at Decula.
Yeah, a couple teams that are hurting right now, very much in need of a region victory. I think when it comes down to it, Archer's a little bit bigger and stronger. I like the Tigers to win.
And then we have Mountain View going on the road playing at Collins Hill.
Yeah, tough call for Mountain View. I think Collins Hill's really got it rolling right now. They had a huge victory, had a bye week to get ready. I like Collins Hill.
Pretty sure there'll be a lot of points in this one, but who do you have winning? South Gwinnett at the Castle playing Central Gwinnett?
I think both these teams are kind of underrated. I think there's going to be a lot of points, even though those defenses are improved. The offenses are very good. I just think South Gwinnett's got a little bit more in this one.
We know Norcross is good. I guess we're going to find out just how good Mill Creek is. This is a really interesting Region 7 5A showdown.
Yeah, I think it'll be a tough, close game. I think Norcross just has too much talent all over the field. I like the Blue Devils to go for the road win.
And then finally, Gwinnett's big rivalry is really interesting again. Brookwood playing at Parkview. Parkview's on a roll. Can the Panthers get another win?
It's tough to doubt Parkview right now. They're playing some great football, and I really think the Panthers have what it takes to get it done in this one and kind of take hold of the region to upset the Broncos.
All right, that's going to do it for this week's GPR. Be sure to join us next week for more highlights and features with a full slate of Friday Night Football. And you can see Gwinnett Prep Rally every Tuesday through Friday right here on GCPS TV. You can go to GwinnettPrepRally.com for all the scheduling details. For Will Hammock and all of us here at GPR, I'm Todd Klein. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you under the lights.
Grab some wood there, bub.